For 8 long years, the people of Israel cried beneath the weight of oppression. They had forgotten the God who delivered them, and now fear filled their homes, their fields, and their hearts. But when they finally cried out to the Lord, heaven answered. God did not choose a king with a golden crown. He did not choose the loudest man in Israel. He chose Othniel, a brave but often forgotten warrior. And when the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, one ordinary man became Israel's first great deliverer. This is the story of Othniel, the forgotten judge God used to bring freedom, victory, and 40 years of peace.
Long after Joshua had led Israel into the Promised Land, the people began to forget the God who had rescued them. The land was quiet, the battles were over, and the tribes of Israel were settling into their homes. But slowly, something dangerous began to happen. The people stopped listening to the Lord. They copied the nations around them. They worshipped false gods, bowed to idols, and forgot the covenant God had made with them. And because they turned away from God, trouble entered the land. The Bible says in Judges 3:7,
"And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and forgat the Lord their God, and served Baalim and the groves."
Because of their disobedience, God allowed a powerful enemy to rise against them. His name was Cushan-rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia. He was a cruel ruler, and for 8 long years Israel lived under his oppression. The people who once walked freely now lived in fear. Families whispered at night, wondering when the enemy would come. Farmers worked hard, but much of what they produced was taken from them. Mothers worried for their children. Fathers felt helpless. The joy of the land slowly disappeared. Israel had forgotten God, but God had not forgotten Israel. After years of suffering, the people finally cried out to the Lord. Their cry was not beautiful or polished. It was desperate. It was the cry of people who had reached the end of their own strength.
Lord, save us.
And because God is merciful, he answered. This time God did not raise up a king with a crown or an army commander with a famous name. He raised up a man named Othniel. Othniel was not a stranger to courage. He was the son of Kenaz, and he was connected to Caleb, one of the faithful spies who believed God could give Israel the land of Canaan. Othniel had already shown bravery earlier in his life when Caleb promised his daughter Achsah in marriage to the man who would capture the city of Kirjath-Sepher. Many may have heard the challenge, but Othniel stepped forward. While others may have looked at the walls and thought, "This is too hard," Othniel believed victory was possible. He fought, captured the city, and received Achsah as his wife. But now Israel needed more than one city conquered. Israel needed deliverance. The Bible says in Judges 3:9-10,
"And when the children of Israel cried unto the Lord raised up a deliverer to the children of Israel, who delivered them, even Othniel the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother. And the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he judged Israel and went out to war."
Othniel did not rise in his own strength. He did not deliver Israel because he was naturally powerful or because he had great influence. The secret of Othniel's victory was this: the Spirit of the Lord came upon him. That changed everything. A man who was willing became a weapon in God's hand. Othniel stood before a frightened nation and reminded them that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob was still mighty. He reminded them that the same God who parted the Red Sea could still break the chains of oppression. The same God who gave Jericho into Israel's hands could still defeat the enemies surrounding them. Then Othniel went to war. The king of Mesopotamia may have seemed powerful. His army may have seemed unstoppable. His rule may have lasted 8 years, but when God raised up Othniel, the enemy's time was over. Othniel led Israel into battle, and the Lord gave him victory. Cushan-rishathaim was defeated, and the heavy burden over Israel was broken. The fear that filled the land was replaced with peace. The cries of suffering became songs of relief. The people who had lived under oppression were free again. And because Othniel judged Israel faithfully, the land had rest for 40 years. For 40 years, families could sleep without fear. Farmers could harvest in peace. Children could grow up hearing about the God who answered prayer. Israel experienced what happens when God raises a deliverer and his people return to him. But Othniel's story is more than an old battle from the book of Judges. It is a reminder for us today. Sometimes people only turn to God when life becomes painful. Like Israel, we can become comfortable and forget the one who brought us this far. We can chase after things that look attractive, but slowly pull our hearts away from God. Then, when trouble comes, we realize that nothing in this world can save us like the Lord can. Othniel's story teaches us that God hears the cry of his people. It also teaches us that God can use someone who seems ordinary to do something extraordinary. Othniel was not the most famous judge in the Bible. He did not have the strength of Samson, the dramatic calling of Gideon, or the fame of Deborah. But he had something greater than fame. He had the Spirit of the Lord. And when God's Spirit comes upon a person, fear can turn into courage, weakness can turn into strength, and bondage can turn into freedom. Othniel reminds us that God does not need the loudest person, the richest person, or the most popular person. He needs a willing heart. When Israel cried out, God raised Othniel. When darkness covered the land, God sent a deliverer. When the enemy seemed too strong, God showed that no power is greater than his own. And for 40 years, the land had rest. The story of Othniel teaches us that when people turn away from God, they lose peace. But when they cry out to him with sincere hearts, God is merciful to save. Othniel's victory was not by human strength, but by the Spirit of the Lord. God can use ordinary people to bring extraordinary deliverance when his Spirit is with them.